What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Time Killers podcast. My name's Neil Rivera, and today I am killing time with Mr. Matthew Field. How's it going, Matt?
This is Matthew Podcaster, the podcaster variant, or the alter of the actual Matthew here.
Oh, I love that. A nice little tease for what we're going to be talking about later. And I'm also killing time with Mr. Wesley Rivera. How you doing, Wes?
I'm doing great, but if a train leaves from Massachusetts going 34 miles an hour, another train leaves Houston going 96 miles an hour, why the fuck is my dick hard?
We need our scientist, Matthew, for that one. Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. Glad that you guys are here. Matthew, Wesley, that also means you guys as well. Thanks for joining. Glad that you guys are here with me. But yeah, thanks for you, the listeners, being here. If you guys haven't already, we have our social profiles are in the description of this here podcast episode. Click on it. You'll find whatever social profiles that we're on, and find us and follow us on the ones that you like. If you're listening to us here on a podcast service, that's awesome. We appreciate it. Don't forget to leave us a review and subscribe to us so you don't miss future episodes. And yeah, with that being said, guys, let's just jump right into the show. We have been playing two games predominantly. First of which of those is The Alters. This is the latest this is 11-Bit Studios. This is the people who did Frostpunk, and I'm missing another one, but
This War of Mine?
yeah, so this is... What was the other one, Matthew?
The other one is like This War of Mine, I think is their other.
This War of Mine. Yeah. Yep, that is it. So yeah, so they're known for like these sort of like hardcore survival-y sim kind of games. You know, like I know Frostpunk is more of like a city builder, but they really lean on like the survival element. And Alters is kind of in the same vein as that, but it is more of a base builder. So the main sort of premise is you are I guess you're stranded on an expedition that goes, you know, like on a mission that goes sideways. You're stranded on a remote planet, and you have to essentially make it home. And what happens is you have to make clones of yourself, essentially. So it's you know, it's very inspired by movies like Mickey 17. You're cloning all these different versions of yourself, and the idea is that you're building a base and you have to survive with all of these different variants of yourself. And yeah, so it's Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, it's everywhere. It's PC, Xbox, PlayStation, but it's also out on Game Pass.
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay. Yeah, and so, I mean, that's how I've been playing through it. Matthew, how far are into it? I know you've been playing it, so how far into it are you? How many hours about have you played, and what are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, I have played somewhere between, I guess, 10 to 12 hours of it. And I am in Act 2. I guess I'm assuming it's split into 3 acts and a prologue. I don't know that for sure. But yeah, I guess sort of towards the middle of Act 2, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I was gonna say you're a little bit farther than me. I have monkeyed around, and we can touch on this a little bit later when we talk about like things like the save mechanic. But I think you've been able to make a bit more progress than me, whereas like I've spent a lot of time like replaying a lot of the same sections over and over again. But I'm kind of somewhere in the same boat of like 10 to 15 hours is what I was gonna say.
Yeah, and I think that overall I'm pretty. I quite like it a lot. But I think, you know, and we can kind of start, I guess, getting into some of the nitty gritty here. Like, I think it does a surprisingly good job blending the genres that it is pulling from here. It very clearly does have its roots in some of 11-bit's other games like Frostpunk. I was a big fan of Frostpunk. So it does. You can tell that they are very interested in giving you a lot of different responsibilities. In this game, that it equates to both like resource management, but also emotional management for the altars that you slowly build over time, and then just have chaos happen to the point where, for me at least, I feel like there's no way to perfectly manage everything that's going on. Like. You're going to be letting something slip through the cracks, and it's up to you to prioritize what the most important things are for you. And I think they ride that line pretty well, on the default difficulty that I'm playing on.
That and I've always kind of steered clear of 11-bit games. So this is my first taste of what I've never touched any of the Frostpunk games or really I never really had an interest to touch them, because I've known that they sort of have a penchant for being more challenging in that regard. And I jumped into this sort of fresh, and you can definitely feel it. And I think that's why I'm spending a lot of time replaying some of the sections, is that like a lot of it, like it just throws a lot of systems at you really, really quickly. And then it does I do think the tutorial is really nice in terms of easing you in, but then it does start throwing stuff at you really quickly. And it is very much a game about crisis management.
Yeah, and I think the crucial difference here between the altars and something like Frostpunk is that Frostpunk will give you a lot of warning about when something that you have to prepare for is happening. Like Frostpunk will tell you, like, in a month from now, you need to have this much of X stocked up so that your people can survive through this, whatever cold snap or whatever event's happening. Whereas there's an impending event happening in the altars, but on your first playthrough, at least, it does not telegraph very far ahead of time when that event is going to happen. And I feel like what I expect to happen to you in Act 1, and almost happened to me, is that it left me scrambling at the very end of the act to try to make sure that I was able to meet that deadline.
Yeah, and I mean that's I think really like my first I'm in the same boat as you, where like I overall like it. This is kind of this game kind of has been living rent free in my head all week, where it has been all that I have thought about and like really just sort of wanted to play anytime I've had any sort of free time. And a lot of that has to do with, obviously the story and the concept and like sort of just the main the main idea of the game, but really just the save system. And that's what I want to kind of touch on here at this point, is like it's punishing. It's a punishing game by every stretch of the imagination. But the save system essentially allows for you to go back and it makes it the most forgiving and approachable game of its kind. And I would imagine it's probably the most approachable 11-bit Studios game, one of the most approachable games that they've made so far, because it essentially allows you to replay the previous days, try for different outcomes, and then essentially rebranch the storyline. I mean, Matthew, am I characterizing that correctly? I mean, like, how would you describe the save system?
Yeah, and just to break it down for the audience who maybe hasn't followed this game, the game is split up into each day, and each day you have basically unlimited energy, but you have a limited number of hours, and each task you do, the clock is always ticking. And then if you go over and work on an activity, whether that's like mining or cooking food or doing a repair or any activity that's available to you, time speeds up while you're doing that activity. And so, the way the save system works at the beginning of every day, it's making a save file automatically. And then you can kind of go back, and if you don't like how the last few days have gone, you just reload from that day. And if you had a conversation with one of your alters or another NPC in the game, it'll still tell you what option you took last time. So if you know that it was good or bad, it'll highlight that. So there is an element of persistence regardless of the save file. If you want to do the same or explicitly different than what you did before. So it's really well implemented, and I think it encourages experimentation in a way that if it didn't do those things would maybe just lead to frustration.
Yeah, I think it's such a great and interesting like evolution of, like specifically the dialogue part where it is highlighting your previous, dialogue choices, where it is, I think it's such a good evolution of that, like, it clearly draws so much from like the BioWare era of RPGs with the dialogue trees and the different outcomes and like obviously approaching conversations different ways with different versions of yourself based on how their life has played out will have different outcomes. It almost, it seems like it's made for people who, want to go back and redo those specific moments, like in a story-based game, but then don't want to have to like completely re-roll a new character, right? Like it allows you to sort of like peel back all the layers of the onion as you're playing through it. And yeah, no, it's, I mean, like it's like the best thing I can say about the save system is that like, I came into this like completely blind, and that like I reached that point at the end of Act 1 where I was like, okay, clearly like things are just not going well for me. Like I have not managed, like I did not manage the my time well at all in the first act. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to have to, like, I'm just going to roll a new character. Like, I'm just going to just start a brand new story. And even then, it was like, it gave me the ability to even go back to, like, the previous game that I played and find the specific, okay, well, where did these things go wrong? And then beyond that, Matthew, like, you can even lock a day where, like, if you have a day where you're like, okay, this is, like, a good point where things are going well for me, like you can secure that day from being overwritten, and it'll always remain there for you to go back to. And so like instead of having to start all over again like I anticipated, I just went to I had secured a save, and I was like, okay, cool, like let's start from here, and like ran through it a little bit more optimally, and like I'm having a blast. And like I think the biggest compliment I can give a studio like 11-bit is like they have a commitment to making the game challenging, because like the game is still challenging, like it is, and we can get into the nitty gritty of like the chaos management of it all. But like I think the biggest compliment that I can give the alters is that like it allows someone like me who is prone to making mistakes to make those mistakes and learn from them without being punished too hard for them.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, personally, I find this game to be more challenging than Frostpunk. Frostpunk was like the optimal challenge for a game like that, to where I never had to reload like an old save to like do things radically different. At most, I was, just repeating like the last few minutes if I'd really missed something narrowly. But yeah, the alters, I mean, I find it pretty difficult, and I think they want you to engage with the save system in that way and retry things. I don't get the impression that they really want you to never have to reload a save. I'm sure there are people who are really good at these kind of games that can do that easily, but that's not me. And I feel like the game just really encourages you to mess with that system.
Yeah, no, totally. And yeah, no, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, yeah, and even talking about like the difficulty, like, I mean, I do think, like we mentioned like the game, or I mentioned the game throws a lot of systems at you early on. I mean, I guess, comparing to something that is strictly a city builder, how do you find, like all of the systems in the alters, to come together? Is there anything that sticks out, both negative or positive?
Yeah, and this is actually something that I wanted to ask you about as well, because I know you're more into like resource management games, the big city management games than I am. Frostpunk was sort of an outlier for me that I really liked that. I find this to be pretty good, and actually, my wife is more into the resource management kind of games than I am, and she we've swapped the controller back and forth on this one, and she misses some of the more robust options that you get from full-fledged resource management games. But for me, I think they give you enough tools. Like the big one is they call it like the uplift feature, or the uplift uplift something, where it's basically like if your stock of a certain item falls below this number that you set, it'll automatically queue up the resource to be created, so that one of your alters or you can go and just start working on it whenever there's free time. I think that's a really handy feature, and I think that's sort of like a default feature in a lot of these games. But given the emphasis on also just like third-person exploration, I don't feel like you need a whole lot more than that in this kind of game.
Yeah. There's a lot of those sort of systems that like the game doesn't quite like, it doesn't overtly explain to you, because I remember like I eventually like I figured out that system before I got the side quest that was like meant to introduce it. So it was one of those things where I was like, tinkering with the like crafting, and then like I guess organically found it. But yeah, I mean, all that to say that there's a lot of these, like sort of like systems in play that I guess they sort of make things easier. I don't know where I'm going with this. But yeah, I mean, I think, like, I don't think there's anything that's like super like robust or like super fully fleshed out. Oh yeah, like speaking to the missing some of the like the city management features. I do think some of the like the base building elements are a little bit underbaked, but I don't think that's the emphasis of it. Like it's a nice little mesh, like there's a, I think it's pulling a lot, I think it's pulling a lot of different elements from different genres. Like I think there's a lot it has in common with something like The Sims, where like we can get into like building the different like extensions of the base, and like having to play Tetris with like making sure everything stacks together, but then like also like having that like sort of like isometric perspective while you're in the base, and like it sort of makes it seem like like you're managing a whole family of yourself, their needs and whatever, making sure you have like home cooked meals and stuff like that. But then it's also, I mean, like it is pulling sort of like the more like, I would dare say this is my first colony sim, where it's like, you are like sort of like building a colony, and like, you are setting up things that are like automated. That's a whole other thing that we haven't gotten into. And I think that was the area I really struggled with in my first playthrough, was just managing the altars themselves and like sending them out to different, like, obviously you're building different outposts and like mining stuff and collecting different resources. And as you collect more altars, you can send them out to do that for you and all to automate those things. But yeah, I mean, it's I like I said, it's a very interesting meld of a lot of different genres that I have traditionally loved over the years, and I think that's why I'm so highly on it.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the interactions that you have with your altars here, but there's also this ongoing mystery of exactly what happened to your initial expedition. You're the only one that survived. You found, at the very beginning of the game, you see that everyone else is dead, but you also have communication back to a few individuals, either at your company's home base or at some relay station out in deep space somewhere, where they're the ones that instruct you how to create the altars, and what a morally gray area doing such a thing is, and there's lots of like references to philosophy and stuff that's it kind of elevates it into a more I don't want to say deep, because I don't think it tries to be super deep, but it basically it tries to elevate it over something.
It's more thought provoking.
It does. It wants you to think about the ethics and like the actual all your altars are branched off of your own life. The people who have just who originally made one different core decision, and they became other people. And I think it really wants you. It does want you to engage with the idea of like, what are those core memories in my own life, and what could I have an alternate version that became a doctor or a botanist or something like that? Like I mean, some of the examples are admittedly pretty extreme in this game. Like I don't think some of these branching paths would go quite that far. But
are you saying that there could be an alter of you that is a podcast host?
That is what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah, one day. No, I was going to say that I do think the writing is probably the one place where I do feel it's the most uneven. So I wouldn't say that it's all negative, because I do think that there are some conversations and there are some like moments in the game that are really thought provoking, and you can tell like it's really good sci-fi where it is. Yeah, you are questioning the ethics, the morality of what's going on. Like they've really established, like they've done a good job of like establishing like there's this corporation, there's a resource that's really, really valuable to the corporation. This is a lot of what has to do with your character being here. I think where the area where it does struggle is like Jan the protagonist himself, and the different versions of himself. I do think they are a little bit extreme, and so I do think their personalities are a little bit extreme. It's almost like, what is the scientist version of myself? And like, truthfully, it probably wouldn't be that much different than myself. Probably just a little bit more hardworking, a little bit more committed. But like, I think they play it up a little bit too much in the dialogue. And yeah, like I can tell, like, Jan, like you could tell they're making him sort of like this everyday, sort of like everyman, like hero, but like he doesn't really come off super great in a lot of these sequences.
Yeah, I mean, I think dealing with the alters and their egos and stuff is both interesting and like, because I agree, there is some actually really good writing in there, but the game, it's all tuned up to 11. Like the game needs them to throw a wrench in your plan and not just go along with whatever you're saying. So some of the issues that come up as a result of their wants and needs does feel a little bit manufactured, to where it feels like they're twisting the narrative to suit the gameplay, which is kind of one of my pet peeves. When I don't like when you can see the seams coming apart like that. But I think they overall, for what needs to be done to keep moving the game forward and keep it compelling, I think they do a pretty good job.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that point you made wholeheartedly. I do think those are probably my two critiques, is that like the writing, and then like 1A, 1B is that like the writing is uneven, and at the times that it is uneven, it is in service of just like introducing more weird gameplay mechanics, or like more things to manage essentially. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess in terms of, the alters themselves, is there any, versions that you found particularly interesting?
So I think, I don't know this for sure, but I expect that you won't be able to see all of them in a single run. Yet again, lending to the idea that they want you to engage with, loading and replaying from earlier saves. But I don't know. I think I can more easily tell you the ones that I don't like. I don't know if you have it. The one with only one arm.
The miner? Is he the miner?
Yes, the miner.
I believe.
Yeah.
Yes. Cannot stand that guy.
I wish I had never gotten him out of the womb. Absolutely infuriating to deal with.
Good. Well, okay, that was a big part of my replay, was that I had him, and I was like, all of a sudden my life became miserable. He made my life miserable. And like, I want to say within 3 days of him coming out of the womb, he completely, like, I had gotten a game over.
Yeah.
That was the point where I was just like, okay, I'm reverting back, or I'm just not playing this game, and I cannot stop thinking about this game, so I'm reverting back.
Yeah, I mean, I think for he's annoying in his own way, but I think the scientists, I don't know if that's one that is required. He feels like he was required. I don't know how you would play this game without having the scientist, but I think he's one of the ones where it is a believable branch, right? Like this does actually feel like a believable alternate version of the character you're playing who doesn't feel super over the top and just has different priorities in life. So if I had to pick one so far that I think is just well done, it's the scientist.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I think they straddle that line a little bit between like, believable and comical with him, but I do think they do a good job. And shout out to the quantum computer, like that mechanic, the timeline mechanic in general, because like I don't know about you, but like I sat and like read through the entire like history and core memories leading up to the event, and then like just to see like every split that happens, it just becomes like, okay, what happens and how does this vary from my yawn and how does that vary from this other yawn, and like the game does really interesting things with it in terms of like the gameplay mechanics and like making sure like you're picking, having certain ones in your party, in your crew at the time. And so, like, upon going back and, like, replaying in a more, like, optimized way, like, I can really see, like, they're really cooking with this one. Like,
for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're complaining about interacting with the alters, but the presentation of the branching mechanic and seeing the way that this other alter's life has played out, when you're birthing them from this artificial womb, it's an exciting moment because it's like, oh, what is this person going to be like? What are they? How is this? How are the differences in their lives shaped them? And I think that's a really strong, like, those are all high points of the game when you first read through to see exactly how they're different and then meet them for the first time as they get their bearings after just being born. That has not gotten old for me yet.
No, yeah, no. There's some rough edges, but I would say overall, like the presentation, audio, visual, like the soundtrack is a definite strength. The music is incredible, particularly during those sequences. The visuals, like there's definitely some jank. Like the animations can be a little rough, but like I think overall, like it's a very good looking game. Runs really well. It reminds me like there's a lot, like I don't know like technically what's going on under the hood, but it seems like there's something impressive happening because like you're in this base that you can at any point zoom out and like just modify the locations of the rooms, and like the game just, for me, just doesn't skip a beat. Just immediately, like, you're rejoining rooms and moving them around, and like you can just immediately go from, leave that menu, go, into the next room that you just plopped right down, and like there's a lot. I there's a lot of good stuff that it's doing, both from an audio visual standpoint, both technically and artistically.
Yeah, and I want to call out the voice acting too. All of the Jan alters are voiced by the same voice actor. Alex Jordan is his name. And also shout out to Maxwell, who's one of the characters that you kind of introduces you to the mechanic that allows you to create the alters, who is voiced by it's the voice actor for Geralt in The Witcher. I'm blanking on his name.
Doug Cockle.
Yes, Doug Cockle. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he does. He's does a good job as well in my book.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm as high on the voice acting. It's been a little uneven, but I would say it's probably more the writing isn't as good. But yeah, I do think the voice acting definitely fits the vibe and like the overall like sort of themes that they're going for. I mean, and yeah, like this game very well could have just been like a generic, like, oh yeah, you need to survive on the planet, and like they are really throwing a lot with that, the added layer of the cloning and like the morality of it all. So I'm really excited to continue playing it and like really like see it through to the end.
Me too. Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, guys, with that, we are going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we are going to talk about Dune Awakening, the latest from, is it Funcom?
Funcom, yep.
Yep.
And yeah, so we will be right back. And we are back, and we're ready to talk about Dune Awakening. This is the latest from Funcom. This is the team that worked on Conan Exiles, which is a survival MMO set in the Conan universe. So now they're doing the same thing here, set in the Dune universe. And luckily for me, I am two of my co-hosts are the two of the biggest Dune fans that I know, and arguably one of the biggest I know is Wesley. Wesley, so how do you feel about Dune Awakening? How long have you played it? And just, give us your top level thoughts.
Well, offhand, I want to say I'm at about 50, maybe 60 hours so far.
Just remind us, we're recording this on June 19th. How long ago did this game come out?
I want to say
June 10th.
5 days
June
ago?
10th. 9 days.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 9 days.
Okay. So I mean, we're that's I would say that's impressive for just 9 days.
That's daily work. I wake up. I have the benefit of having a terrible sleeping pattern. So if I could go to bed at like 2 a.m., I'm up at 6, and so I'm up. I don't have to be at work until 11. So it's chores and Dune.
That's it. So what are you thinking?
So, just at a glimpse, for anyone who doesn't know what the game is, as you were saying, yes, this is based off of the world of Dune. It's actually, in the intro cinematics, it's clearly explained very quickly that this is an alternate reality of Dune. So, in the books and the movies, the main character is Paul, and so this is sort of a what-if scenario of what if Paul was never born? And you can they show you like the impact of it, and then why your character has importance in the game and why you're there.
Got it. And so you're essentially, and this is, so it's a survival MMO, so like Rust, and it's, you and a group of other people. So like, is there an explanation for like it being a group of people? Like, like how do they kind of get around the MMO part?
They just kind of throw it in your face. There really isn't any rhyme or reason to it. It's just in Dune you have several factions, and very early on you're able to join a faction, mainly House Atreides or House Harkonnen, the two big houses in that world. And so from there it does ask for, or it implies heavily on, like working with other people and actually conspiring against other people. And it gets very interesting, and I'm very excited to get more in depth with that.
Yeah, so I mean, so set the stage for us. Like, what character did you roll? Like, what faction are you with? Like, tell us about like the character creator, like that system, and like the different classes.
So the character creator is really interesting because it's cinematically you're brought before a truthsayer who's kind of interrogating you. It's very much the same way that they introduce you in Conan Exiles. You're a criminal and you're being punished. And so in this sense, you're being sent to Arrakis, the desert planet Dune.
Right.
And so the truthsayer is asking you questions about yourself, and it's allowing you to input like what class you are, what home planet you came from, all of which offer both skill-based, unique base skills and unique dialogue options too, because in Conan Exiles, you didn't really have a lot of dialogue interactions and that sort of stuff. It was mostly just survival. But in this game, you're doing quests, you're talking to NPCs who, you can kind of later on, as you do quests for them, you can kind of elaborate certain behaviors of theirs where it's like, oh, hey, you're really passionate about this thing. What's the backstory on that? And depending on their feelings for you, they'll tell you a little or a lot.
Gotcha. So I mean, let's get into the MMO mechanics here. So, you mentioned you're going on quests, and you get to Arrakis, and so I mean, what is the game having you do? Like, is it heavy on survival? Is it like heavy on base building? Are you more like exploring and like following the story, or like walk us through that?
So towards like the middle of the game, it's very clear, because that's kind of where I'm at right now. They state it to where the exploration, the crafting, and the survival are all branches that you can kind of invest a little into or mainline heavily into one or two. And the reason that they kind of push towards that is there's something called the Chome Exchange in the game, and it ties into the world. It's essentially like the universe's stock market, and that sort of revolves around everything that happens all throughout the world and by proxy in this game. So by investing your talents into exploration, you can get really unique items because you're exploring caves and abandoned facilities that have unique technologies that won't be available to like the everyman. Whereas if you invest in like crafting, then crafting and exploration, maybe then you become good at mining spice. These are all things that you can eventually use to manipulate and influence the player-controlled market that this game really boasts.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems like one of those scenarios where it's kind of one of those like it's you sort of pick a lane and that's kind of what you specialize in, and then that's what your incentive is to sort of party and team up with other players.
Yeah, because you want to team up with people who have different skill tree, different investments than you, because the idea is you want to have flexibility with this Chome exchange. Because what I'm seeing now on like forums with like PvP stuff, they'll do manipulative things like there's something called an ornithopter, which is like a flying vehicle, and you can kind of use it to gather really good resources. So someone had the idea of putting this ornithopter on the player market for cheap, dirt cheap. That way everyone could get it. Then everyone's mining this super expensive resource, and then that floods the market, and this item no longer becomes valuable. But so obviously with selling items on this market, you can, set your own prices, and there's even smuggling, which comes later on in the game. So there are faction controlled items, equipment, gear. You can actually smuggle that and sell it to, an opposing faction. And because you've smuggled something that these people can't get, you can set a higher price.
Oh, okay. So backing up real quick, what lane did you sort of pick between those three, like the exploration path? Like which one are you sort of like heavily invested in right now?
I'm definitely leaning towards both exploration and crafting manufacturing. My plan is I'm doing the spice melange. Spice is the most valuable resource in the Dune world. It's what allows you to travel through space. You got to get super high in order to travel through space, which is why I love this series, of course, guys.
No, nothing quite like getting high in space. That's nothing sells Wesley on a game more than that. Matthew, I want to bring you into the conversation. So, you've played this as well. I guess same question to you. Like, what sort of like has been your focus, and how much time and have you invested into Dune Awakening?
Significantly less time so far. I've played about 8 hours, Steam tells me, which feels like I'm really just scratching the surface here. Obviously, being an MMO, there's going to be a lot of depth and. But
that also means like you're a normal human being with a life too. So
Yes. Yeah. But yeah. So I picked a more trying to do something different than Wesley, because Wesley and I have played this a couple times here. I picked the Trooper archetype, which is more of a combat-focused one, which so far I have not gotten a whole lot of use out of. I feel like that's not been a super valuable early game, class to pick. But I think in general though, I'm having a good time with it.
Does it seem like that your class is like more PvP oriented? Like, does it seem like, I guess in terms of, this might be a good segue into like the combat specifically, but like, how does combat function since this is like more of an MMO?
Yeah, I think so. The reason why the trooper skill trees have underwhelmed me so far is mostly because a lot of the skills, or at least it seems like one tree entirely, or one of the three branches of this class's tree, is it hinges on you being able to craft or find specific weapons that it will then buff. And in the early game, you just don't have those weapons. So, when I'm trying to pick where I want to put my points as I'm leveling up, I'm like level 9 or 10 or something at this point. I don't have those additional weapons, and maybe I'm just slow and I should have some of those by now, but I don't. So it hasn't really paid off for me. And there's of course other stuff that you can put your points into, but it just feels like that is just a void right now, limiting my options for progression until I get a little bit further in.
Oh, and just to be clear, so my skill set, I picked the Mentat profession. They're like humanoid computers. And so it seems that a lot of my skill trees are poison-based and technological-based, where I'm dropping turrets and man-made force fields, and it allows me to really control the battlefield.
So really quick, I guess, through the character creator, like, what are the things that are dictating like what you do from a gameplay perspective? And like, is it, because you mentioned like the mentat, like that's not a path that you're choosing, that's something that you're picking at the point of creation, right?
Yes, that is correct. And so basically, so you pick your class and you pick what home planet you were from, and then you pick who you were in society. Were you someone who's poor, someone in the middle class, or like someone of a noble house? And that last part is mostly just dialogue options.
Got it. So yeah, by pivoting over to I guess more of the social stuff. I mean, I guess talk me through your experience playing this game together. How has it run? Like, did the servers, everything is everything running fine? And like, are you guys having fun with it as an MMO, or like, what, how are you guys feeling about it?
This game makes suffering enjoyable. And Matthew, I believe you have a very fun anecdote about our suffering just a few hours ago.
Yeah, before we dip into that, I want to touch on how the servers work in this game. I feel like it's worth noting here, because when you think MMO, you think, the format that World of Warcraft popularized, where it's just a server and everybody on that server can see each other and interact with each other in exactly the same way. This implements it a little bit differently, and maybe there's probably other games that have done it this way, but I haven't played one. So you have worlds, which are your servers, and then you have it's subdivided into what they call sietches, which is like the Dune. It's a Dune terminology, but it's basically like they're sub servers. So you can play with anybody else on the same world as you, but if you go, even if you're in the same server and the person you want to play with is in a different sietch, you cannot claim land in that sietch. Like, obviously building your base, we haven't really talked about it too much yet, but a large part of this game is building your base with the materials that you find, so you can have that to craft your stuff. And you can only do that in your home world. And I don't know how many people are limited to a sietch, but it seems small, like, I don't know, less than 100 maybe that's way off, but it feels small compared to the overall size of the world. So even though Wesley and I have picked the same world to join, by the time on launch day I was going to try to join the sietch that he's in, it was completely full, so I had to join a different one. It's not a huge issue, because you can still, if the person gives you access to a space that they've claimed, you can still build on their base, but it does mean that it's not quite seamless.
It's like an added layer of red tape, or an added hoop to jump through to play with your friends.
I think this is less for technical reasons and more for they don't want the world to become too crowded, to make sure that you have space for everybody to claim. Because even on like even in a regular siege, you still see other player created bases and structures pretty frequently as you're going around. And I can imagine if you just let tons of people pile all into one server, then it wouldn't be a desert anymore. You would just have massive amounts of a civilization, right? Yeah. Which would be cool in its own way, but not what they're going for here. So I get it, but it is an extra element of friction when you want to play with other people.
Yeah. So I mean, I know where you guys. We'll get to your anecdote that you wanted to share, but I mean, talk me through base building. We hadn't really touched on it. Is there anything worth touching on? Is it kind of more or less the same systems that we've seen through a lot of these different base building games, or is there anything like interesting or unique that's going on here?
The most interesting aspect of it is that the outside world, the entire planet, is hostile. You cannot naturally survive on it. It's not made for, it's not made for humans. So when you're outside, your moisture is constantly dropping, your moisture levels, your hydration. And so the only way to survive is creating a base where you can create something that is, as they put it, water sealed. And so by doing that, you're able to survive. You ideally want to travel by night. You don't want to be in the sun. The really interesting mechanic with that is if you're out in the sun, you can survive by hiding in the shade, finding shadows, moving from shadow to shadow. And so on top of that, obviously, per like Conan Exiles, you have like your starting area, and then as you progress, more towards the game, you get higher, more advanced resources. So they push this feeling of like, hey, this base that you're establishing, as well invested as you need to be in the space, it's temporary because you're going to destroy it, take all your resources, and move farther up. And in order to do that, you're going to need to craft vehicles, more durable vehicles that can fly, or vehicles that can carry a lot of stuff. Yeah, exactly. You're moving onwards constantly. You're not staying in the same place for too long.
Yeah, interesting. Matthew, did you have any thoughts, like on the base building in the early game?
Yeah, I mean, the big comparison here for me, because I don't play a ton of these kind of games, is something like Valheim. And the base building feels it feels good. Valheim, I think, I love Valheim. I love the building in that game, but it can feel very fiddly at times, where the tools and the way they've done the menus in Dune is... It's very streamlined, but easy to find what you're looking for, and you can really just kind of, throw out whatever tiles that you're wanting to build, and the result is that you can build a pretty decent base without a ton of effort. It feels like. Wesley, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that for the early part of the game. It's very clear because I'm in the aluminum tier, and base building has become like in a good way very challenging. I'm having to go to specific places to get very specific resources, and just praying this chest is going to have at least 3 of these advanced servox.
Yeah, so we're kind of dancing around a difficulty issue. You mentioned a little bit a while ago that you and Matthew had an interesting experience playing together, and that it led you to believe that this game hates you. So walk us through that. Walk us through some of the sort of like more challenging elements of this game, and why that might be frustrating for some people.
The most... Yeah. Matthew, please.
Okay, yeah, I'll go through our play session from earlier, because I think this is pretty illustrative of the experience in a nutshell, both good and bad. So over the course of about an hour, just earlier today, Wesley and I, linked up to play some Dune. So we started off, Wesley being further in the game. I joined his party and his siege, so I moved over into his world. As a function of that, I didn't enter the world near him. I entered in a place where I had been to in my world, which ended up being far away from where he was. Now, there's a sort of a rudimentary fast travel system in this game. I haven't really used it. I couldn't speak to the mechanics of it, but I wasn't able to get to where Wesley was. So he was going to have to come and get me on a vehicle that he had. So he spends a bunch of time traversing the world, driving back to where I have entered the world in like basically the beginner area. And he finally gets there. I'm able to kind of ride around on the back of his sand speeder, which is awesome. And then we go into a PvP zone for a quest that I have where I've got to like loot some rare materials. I think it was basically just teaching me the mechanics of what these shipwrecks are that you can loot for rare materials at the expense of, or at the risk of engaging in PvP if somebody else is there. We get in there, we clear it out, we get the stuff, we get out. That's all good fun. And so then we have to head back to Wesley's base, which is far up, back from where he came from. And to do that, you've got to cross a huge expanse of open desert, which we also haven't talked about this, but obviously there are the worms on Dune, and if you make a bunch of noise out in the open sand, they will come after you. And that is exactly what happened. We had this really, really tense moment where we came upon like a random shipwreck out in the middle of the desert. I hop off to try and find an entrance. We know you can see the meter. The sandworm is aware of our presence. I thought he was going to go away because when you get near rocks or other big structures, they turn away. But apparently this wreck was not large enough for that to take place. So as I'm fumbling, trying to loot whatever rare material that I can find in here, Wesley is screaming at me from the sand speeder. My inventory gets full. I can't get it all. I fumble back onto the back of the speeder, and we get about 5 seconds away, and we are both consumed by the sandworm.
Shai Hulud took us.
Which results in a total loss of everything you're wearing and in your inventory, loss of the sand speeder, and basically everything that wasn't in the game world outside of your character. So because, I don't have another spawn point in this world, we have to spawn essentially naked and nowhere near Wesley's base where we have no resources.
I'm telling you, man, survival games got to find a better way to handle death. Like, that's just absurd.
But here's the thing. So here's the thing, though. After this point, we have no resources. We got nothing. Well, we happen to stumble across another player's base that has been abandoned. Usually you can't go and like open up other people's doors and chests and stuff where they can keep their own gear. You have to get their permission to do that. Well, you can also abandon your base, and that's what this person had apparently done because we could fully loot everything he left there. And so we got basically 1.5 suits of armor and some resources enough to craft us like basic level gear. And it had some water in the still suit at that point, which we would need because we didn't have any other way to get water, moisture. So basically we have to make our way on foot. I'll cut the chase here. We fumble our way across the landscape and get an old busted speeder that Wesley had somewhere, and basically make it back to his base as he was dying of dehydration and the speeder was collapsing due to having no fuel. So it was.
It sounds like a victory to me.
That's the thing about this. It is a super like. It makes a great story, right? Like, yes, you lost everything, but we were able to come back from that, and we got a really great story out of it, and that was like a successful 1-hour gameplay session. But I think that if the frustration or the idea of being able to lose all of your stuff like that, to be stranded where you don't have access to any of your stuff, if that is intolerable to you, I think this game is probably not for you. And I think, like most MMOs, it is much better when played with people that you know.
So yes, I mean, as two really big fans of Dune, like, would you recommend it to, you know, anyone who's a fan of the Dune universe, or like, you know, how well does the gameplay and the story sort of like tie in?
I would say that the story is kind of hit or miss, because as an MMO, you do have to focus more on like the multiplayer and survival aspects of what you're trying to create here. But just anyone who's interested in survival games, but I would say almost at its pinnacle. Because the one thing Matthew wasn't talking about with the traversal is you're only safe on rock formations, and the planet is mostly desert. So when you're navigating, you have to keep in mind, okay, how much sand am I, how much, barren land am I going to be crossing over until I'm safe? And on top of that, you have Sardaukar like patrols up in the sky who, if they catch you, with their spotlights, you're immediately engaged into combat. It's sort of like being wanted in GTA. Mm-hmm. And so all those things combined, and like, oh, is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Does this area have a lot of shadows? All of those factor into like your movement patterns.
Yeah.
So people who want like the ultimate survival experience, and people who of course are fans of Dune, would absolutely love this game.
Yeah. So
I think that I would echo that. I think the people who are a fan of Dune, the Dune books specifically, or are just really interested in that sort of fantasy of surviving on Dune, I think they nail that, the feel of it, the vibe, like the atmosphere. I think that's stuff that get exactly right. So if that any of that sounds appealing to you, I would encourage you to take a look.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask Wesley, to the point that you were making, about some of the decisions that you're sort of making, and obviously, I think a lot of that you're doing in real time. As somebody who isn't super familiar with the universe, like, if I was dropped into this, into the game, like, does the game do a good job of teaching you how to do these things? Do I sort of have to draw on the understanding of the Dune universe, or like, I guess explain that to me.
So yeah, the tutorial stage of the game does sort of give you the basic game mechanics, and then once you're outside of there, as you're seeing new things and gaining abilities, you're kind of given these there's these things called trials, and so you have to find these remote places where you'll gain a new power or a new gameplay mechanic. And so in order to beat the trial, you have to use this new mechanic in a tutorial like sense.
Got it.
And narratively, they do explain the significance of this thing. Like this, there's a trial where you eventually learn how to make the still suit. And they're explaining how like moisture is the most important resource on the planet, to the point where there is a gameplay mechanic of you take a needle and you extract all the blood out of someone you've killed, and then you take it to your base where you have a blood purifier that extracts all the water from it, and that's your drinking water.
Hey man, if that's the kind of game that you Dune sickos want to play, those are the kind of mechanics you want in your video games, more power to you, I guess.
But just in reality, like Matthew was saying, this caters more towards the books as instead of the movies. And if you do enjoy the movies, this would be a perfect segue to convince you, hey, maybe I should check out these books.
Yeah, no, definitely. It seems like it's really true to the like the source material, and like it does a good job of at least gamifying some of those things. So yeah, I can totally see someone who's like seen those movies and like wants to like get a taste of that world. I think this is a good entry point for them. And I am a fan of. I think everyone should at least try one survival game. It doesn't seem like this one's doing anything beyond the Dune license, like that's like super interesting. But like I think survival games are as a genre are like probably one of the better ones in gaming right now. So it's good to see them continue to evolve and adapt and get big licenses like Dune. Any closing thoughts from either of you guys before we wrap?
I think I agree with what you're saying, Neil. I think it's, it is a survival Dune game by the people who made Conan Exiles. It is like if you've played Conan Exiles, you know exactly what this game is. It does lean more into the MMO side of things than I think Conan did, but I don't think it's doing a whole lot of revolutionary stuff. But what is there, is I think extremely good. And if it sounds like something you would enjoy, you probably will.
And I do want to point out that we actually have an official Time Killers guild inside Dune Awakening. So if you're reading this, if you're listening to this and you're playing Dune Awakening, we'll give you a guild invite.
Yeah, I guess what we should do is we can drop like your player handle or whatever, and yeah, no, if you're playing Dune Awakening, please shoot Wes and Matt a friend request and jump in and do some spice together and fight some sandworms and like whatever else you sickos want to do. That's gonna do it for our show today, guys. Thank y'all for joining us and listening to us ramble about video games as usual. Our social handles are in the description. We have a link tree. Click on it, and you can find us on whatever social media platform that you use. And don't forget to subscribe to us here on your podcast platform of choice and leave a review. Let us know how much you love us, and let us know what your favorite survival game is. And with that being said, guys, we will see you on the next one. Have a good night.